Okay guys, the worst kept secret in gaming has been confirmed. Sony will be hosting a PlayStation State of Play tomorrow evening to showcase a number of games. Now, at the time of recording this video, this news article just broke to confirm the State of Play, so look into more detail for tomorrow's video. But this is taken from PlayStation Universe, and the short report basically says Sony Interactive Entertainment has announced that the State of Play will be broadcast on September 24th, 2025 at 5 p.m. Eastern Time and 10 p.m. British Summer Time. This is the second State of Play to be held this month following the 007 First Light focused event a few weeks ago. Speaking in a post on the PlayStation blog, the hardware manufacturer confirmed that the new State of Play will offer a fresh look at Soros, the upcoming PlayStation 5 exclusive from Housemarque, with 5 minutes of gameplay footage. The broadcast will last around 35 minutes overall and will include updates on third-party and indie titles, although further details were not revealed. So what else could Sony have up its sleeves? Well, given the mention of third-party games, we could possibly get something on Resident Evil Requiem or another of Capcom's upcoming titles, seeing as how the publisher games have featured a lot in past State of Play broadcasts. For first-party, Marvel's Wolverine is obviously something everyone is wanting to hear from, so keep an eye on that. That's something everybody really is looking forward to seeing. We've heard lots of rumors about a potential Wolverine demo that's already ready to go, and let's see if we get it tomorrow. So that's the big news as we start this video. A State of Play has been confirmed for tomorrow night. I will bring more on this on the next video, but let's move on to the rest of the video today. Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. We have more gaming and PlayStation news, rumours and leaks to go over. Rumours around Resident Evil Requiem suggest it could be one of the most ambitious games in the series yet. And from what's already been teased, it's shaping up to feel darker, more immersive and more grounded than some of the recent entries. Reports are surfacing from various media outlets and those that have had the opportunity to go hands-on with it, that people are noticing how much of a difference ray trace lighting and advanced sound design actually make in the game. Every dark hallway felt suffocating, every noise around the corner added tension, and the demo that people have been playing managed to pull people into that classic Resident Evil atmosphere. However, the visuals and the audio are not the only thing making the headlines. According to well-known industry insider and leaker Dusk Golem, Resident Evil 9 is going to push the story in a new direction too. He claims that this game could deliver the most complex narrative Resident Evil has ever seen. And that's a big statement for a franchise with such a long history of interwoven characters and conspiracies. For starters, Leon Kennedy is rumored to be back. We discussed this yesterday on the video. The fan favorite from previous Resident Evil games is making a return, but not the way we saw him last. This time, Leon is older with graying hair, an unshaven look, and the weight of years of fighting bioterror on his shoulder. It's a side of Leon that fans haven't really seen before, and it immediately sets a different tone for his part in the story. Gameplay-wise, his sections are said to lean heavily into action, but not the over-the-top, borderline supernatural action you might remember from games like Village or parts of Resident Evil 4. Think more grounded, more believable, and according to rumors, gone are the days of fighting things like possessed statues. Instead, Leon's chapters will focus on tense combat in larger, more open environments. Now, vehicles will also play a role in the game, letting players move between areas in a way that might feel reminiscent of the boat sections in Resident Evil 4. And get this, some have even compared these gameplay elements to The Last of Us Part 2, which, if true, could mean slower pacing, heavier combat encounters, and emphasis on realism and brutal action too. Leon isn't the only protagonist. Of course, Grace is a new character introduced into the franchise, and she has her own campaign. And while Leon's story is set in the year 2020, Grace's campaign takes place years later in 2028. That means players will experience two different timelines, two different perspectives, all woven together into one large interconnected story. Now, Resident Evil has dabbled with this before, multiple campaigns with different characters overlapping the same story. But according to the leaks, Resident Evil 9 is pushing this idea further than ever before. The campaign won't just brush past each other, they'll connect on a much bigger scale, creating one of the most ambitious story structures the franchise has attempted. It raises questions: how will events from 2020 shape what's happened in 2028? How much of Leon's choices will echo into Grace's world? Of course, all of this is still rumor territory, Dusk Golem has a history of accurate leaks, especially when it comes to all things Resident Evil. But until Capcom show us official footage, we should keep expectations balanced. Luckily, with the Tokyo Game Show just around the corner, we might not have to wait too long before seeing Leon's new design and gameplay for ourselves. What we do know is that Resident Evil Requiem is scheduled to release on February 27th, 2026, and with the mix of grounded action, gameplay elements compared to The Last of Us Part 2, dual campaigns across 2 timelines, and a more mature Leon Kennedy, it's hard not to get excited about where the series is heading next. Let me know, guys, if you plan on picking this up when it releases. Now, when it comes to Hideo Kojima, one thing's always certain: you never really know what to expect in the games, except you know it's going to be brilliant. Over the years, Kojima has earned a reputation as one of gaming's most ambitious and creative minds, from the stealth-heavy world of Metal Gear Solid to the strange yet emotional journey of the Death Stranding games. His projects are rarely straightforward. They challenge players, they spark conversation, and they often blur the line between games and cinema. Right now, Kojima and his work is not done. He has not one, but 2 major projects, each of them very different, each of them already grabbing the headlines. Let's start with the horror side of things. Kojima has finally shown off more of his mysterious project, which is currently slated for Xbox, but as you know, everything's coming to PlayStation, so expect this on PlayStation at some point. Now, this is a game called OD Knock. Fans of horror instantly connected the reveal back to that short playable teaser from years ago that was originally meant to lead into Silent Hills. Even though Silent Hills was cancelled, PT completely reshaped the way people looked at horror games. It was simple in design but terrifying in execution, and its influence can still be felt today. People still talk about PT. It was that good. So when Kojima teased OD, naturally people expected something in that same vein, something unsettling, something experimental, and with this new teaser for OD Knock, that expectation seems to be coming true. The trailer shows a first-person perspective where the character moves through an eerie, photorealistic room. The light candles on what looks like some kind of altar, and every time a match is struck, strange sounds echo around the space. You can see the trailer being played in the background. Could this be a hint at puzzle mechanics, or maybe it's just a way to build tension? We don't really know yet. Now, the teaser being played in the background ends on a chilling note. Sophia Lillis' character, yes, the actress known for It and Dungeons and Dragons, comes face to face with a shadowy figure. The figure reaches out and grabs her head, cutting everything to black. Classic Kojima, leaving players with more questions than answers. And speaking of the cast, Kojima isn't holding back. Alongside Sophia Lillis, we've got Hunter Schafer and Udo Kier, both known for their intense screen presence. On top of that, acclaimed filmmaker Jordan Peele, the man behind Get Out and Nope, is collaborating with Kojima on OD. That alone makes a project worth keeping an eye on. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because reports suggest that there might actually be more than one OD project in development. Knock, or OD Knock, is just one branch, while the Kojima-Peele collaboration could be something separate. If true, that means Kojima isn't just making one horror game, he might be building an entire horror brand. Could this be his way of continuing what Silent Hills was supposed to be? We don't know yet when OD Knock will be released, or even what platforms it'll appear on. At the moment, it's been rumored to be Xbox only, but like I said, watch this space. It'll probably come to PlayStation and PC at some point too. What we do know at the moment is that it's being published by Xbox Game Studios and built in Unreal Engine, which does open the door for some very realistic visuals. Could it end up being an Xbox exclusive or a Game Pass title on day one? That's of course still up in the air. But while OD takes Kojima into the realm of horror, his other major project looks back at his roots, and I'm talking about Physint, the game being developed with the PlayStation 6 in mind. Now, Physint has been teased for almost 2 years, but until recently, details have been slim. Kojima first hinted it while still working on Death Stranding 2 on the beach. That game is already being held as one of the best titles on the PlayStation 5, so naturally, people were surprised when Kojima revealed he was already planning his next big game. So what is Physint? Kojima describes it as a tactical espionage action game. For longtime fans, that description immediately calls back to Metal Gear Solid, the franchise that made Kojima a household name in gaming. In many ways, Physint is being seen as a spiritual successor to Metal Gear Solid. But again, Kojima isn't satisfied with just repeating the past. He wants to create something that's both a movie and a video game rolled into one. So we don't know how it's going to work. That's still a mystery. At Kojima Productions' 10th anniversary livestream, we got the very first look at Physint, which is just a poster or some concept art. And like most Kojima teasers, it's quite stylish and loaded with hints. The poster shows a trench-coated figure walking down a neon-lit city street with an SMG in hand. The tagline reads, "Here comes the feeling." The character's face is hidden, which has sparked plenty of speculation. Some believe Kojima might be working with Robert Pattinson, since the two have built a friendship in recent years. But Kojima explained that during the actor's strike in 2023, he couldn't lock down a lead role, so for now the mystery still remains. That said, Kojima has already announced some of the supporting cast. Charlie Fraser, who appeared in Anyone But You and Feruza, will be part of the project. Alongside her are Ma Dong-seok, also known as Don Lee from Train to Busan and Marvel's Eternals, and also included in the cast is Minami Hamabi from Godzilla -1. While their roles haven't been revealed, Fraser might be filling a part similar to Fragile from Death Stranding, a strong secondary character who becomes vital to the story. Here's the reality: Physint is still in the very early stages of development. Kojima has admitted there's no full script, and even the name might change. It's likely we won't see the game up until at least the late 2020s or even the early 2030s. That's a long wait, so it's definitely a PlayStation 6 title, we know that for sure. But if Kojima's track record tells us anything, it's that the end result will be something that people will be talking about for years to come. So let's step back and think about this. Kojima is simultaneously working on a horror game that could redefine fear in gaming and an espionage game that could push the boundaries of what we consider a video game in the first place. How many creators in this industry are even attempting that level of ambition? And the real question is, are we ready for it? Because if there's one thing history has shown us, it's that when Hideo Kojima puts his mind to something, the entire gaming industry stops to watch. So let me know your thoughts on this, guys. We've got two great games coming. We've got OD Knock, which feels similar to what PT was back in the day, and it's probably going to go to PlayStation and PC, although at the moment it's being made by Xbox Game Studios. And then we have Physint, which at the moment is a PlayStation exclusive game, which is a spiritual successor to Metal Gear Solid. So let me know your thoughts in the comments, and let's move on, because we have some great news if you're a fan of the Hitman series of games. 2025 marks the 25th anniversary of IO Interactive's Stealth series, and to mark the occasion, the studio is re-releasing the full World of Assassin trilogy in a brand new physical package. But here's the catch: this is a PlayStation 5 exclusive and will not be available anywhere else. They're calling it the 25th anniversary box, and it hits store shelves on October the 17th. Inside the box, you'll get the trilogy neatly packed into one case, complete with new cover art, a special card for collectors, and 4 pieces of downloadable content also bundled in. All of that comes in around $50 US. It's a bit of a surprise that IO Interactive chose to make the physical edition PS5 exclusive, especially since the series has long had a history across multiple platforms. But maybe it makes sense. Every mainline Hitman game, aside from the very first one, has released on PlayStation at some point. The franchise has become part of PlayStation's stealth legacy, alongside Splinter Cell and Metal Gear Solid. Of course, IO is now focusing most of its resources on 007 First Light, the new James Bond game that was teased during the last State of Play. Still, this physical release is a nice way to honor the series that put IO Interactive on the map. This is a nice little surprise to look forward to. Only $50 US too for the 3-game box set and downloadable content. It sounds pretty good to me if you're a collector. So let me know if you plan on picking up the Hitman Anniversary box set down below in the comments. Now moving on to Phantom Blade Zero, a game which is shaping up to be one of the most exciting action games coming to the PlayStation 5. And if you've been following the updates around it, you'll know that this isn't just another Souls-like game. The team at S-Game have been very clear about that. Yes, it borrows some elements we've seen in games like Dark Souls or Sekiro, but they're taking a very different approach when it comes to combat. And one of the most interesting details we've learned recently about the game's bosses, specifically how they behave on the highest difficulty, which is called Hellwalker. Now, normally in action games or Souls games, you fight a boss enough times, you start to recognize the patterns, right? They throw out a combo, you learn when to dodge, when to block, and eventually you do figure it out. Even if you have to play it 100 times, you will figure it out. That's the classic formula. But according to the game's director, things are very different in Phantom Blade Zero. He gave an example with one particular boss. On normal difficulty, the boss behaves more traditionally, as in he uses set combos that you can eventually learn those routines, pretty standard stuff. But on Hellwalker, that's when it gets brutal. The AI steps in and it actually adapts in real time. It studies what's happening in the fight and it changes the mechanics and it changes its attacks based on the situation. If a move lands successfully, it will keep chaining into another. If it misses, it will switch strategies right away. That means you can't just memorize the fight like you would in a typical boss battle. Instead, every round feels like you're up against a real component, more like a fighting game rather than an action RPG. And that's exactly where the inspiration came from. If you think about it for a second, how do you prepare for a boss that thinks and reacts to you instead of repeating the same script over and over again? And that's the kind of question that separates casual players from the ones who really want to test themselves. But here's the thing, right? Phantom Blade Zero isn't trying to scare people off with this difficulty alone. Don't forget, this is the Hellwalker difficulty, and it sounds like it's probably one of the hardest levels. The game will actually have 4 difficulty modes, so you don't have to dive straight into Hellwalker if you don't want to. And to make boss fights feel a little bit more fair, the developers have included a checkpoint system. So if you survive long enough to reach a boss's second phase and then die, you won't actually have to start all over again. You can restart from that second phase. That's a small change, but for players, it can make all the difference between frustration and motivation. Now, the developers have hinted that we will hear something about a release window for Phantom Blade Zero before the end of the year. Now, it has been mentioned that we could potentially get that at the upcoming PlayStation State of Play event, which is taking place tomorrow, which has now been confirmed, or even later at the Game Awards in December. Those are 2 key shows where we could get this announcement about the game. Until then, all we can do is imagine just how intense the boss fights will feel, especially for anyone daring enough to pick the Hellwalker difficulty. Let me know, guys, would you take on a challenge where the boss reacts like a human opponent, or would you stick to something a little less punishing? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, moving on to talk about a new Mafia game. The Mafia series has always had a special place in gaming. From its early days, it's been known for blending open world gameplay with deep storytelling and a focus on organized crime. Unlike a lot of other crime-based games, Mafia leans heavily into drama, atmosphere, and the personal struggles of its characters. Earlier this year, we got the latest entry in the franchise, and that was Mafia: The Old Country. This game took us back to the early 1900s in Sicily, before the Mafia became the global powerhouse that we've come to know from history and pop culture. It showed us those first steps, how organized crime started forming roots, and it gave us a very different perspective compared to the American-based stories from the earlier titles. Now, here's where things get really interesting. During a Twitch live stream of the game, Karina Conte, the actress who plays Isabella Torrisi, may have dropped a massive hint. When answering questions from viewers participating in the stream, she revealed that the developer Hangar 13 has already been approved to move forward with another Mafia game. According to her, this isn't just speculation, it's something that's already been greenlit. Of course, she didn't give away any more details, and of course that raises some big questions. Will this new game be a direct continuation of the Old Country, like a part 2 perhaps? Or will it be another standalone story that connects to the wider Mafia universe? Because that's the thing about the Mafia series. Each game tends to tell its own story with its own set of characters. Each game tends to be a standalone version, but at the same time, they often tie together in subtle ways, whether through themes, reoccurring ideas, or even small references that fans pick up on. It's almost like the games are part of one big shared universe, even though they don't always follow the same main character. Now, before we get too excited about another new Mafia game, it is important to remember something. Just because the project is approved or greenlit doesn't actually mean it's guaranteed to release. The gaming industry is unpredictable like that. Projects unfortunately get cancelled all the time, and the bigger, more infamous games we tend to hear about, but there's lots of games that are always getting cancelled, often for reasons outside of the developer's control. It could be funding related, creative differences, or shifting priorities. They can all cause a game to disappear before it even sees the light of day. But if this new Mafia project does move forward, the possibilities are very exciting. Do we go back further in history, exploring the roots of organized crime even deeper? Do we fast forward into a modern day setting where the Mafia looks very different compared to its early days? Or maybe do we see a return to somewhere in between, like the mid-20th century stories that first made the franchise famous? That's the beauty of the Mafia as a series. It isn't just about gangsters and violence. It's about family, it's about loyalty, it's about betrayal, and what power does to people when they're willing to sacrifice everything for it. And those themes are timeless no matter what era you set the game in. So the big question for fans now is, what kind of Mafia story do you want to see next? Would you prefer another period piece exploring the old world roots of the Mafia, or would you rather see the franchise take a bold step into the modern era? Either way, looks like the saga is not over yet, which is great to hear, even if it is only speculation and rumors right now. Okay guys, let's move on and talk about Arc Raiders. The game is just weeks away from its official launch on PlayStation 5, and the developers over at Embark are doing something really interesting. They're asking players to break the game even before it actually comes out. Think of this as the final test for the developers. From the 17th to the 19th of October, they're running a massive server stress test, a kind of open beta that anyone can join. No signups are needed. Just head on over to the PlayStation Store, download it, and jump on in. The idea is simple. Embark wants as many players as possible hammering these servers, pushing them to their limits, so that when the full game goes live on October the 30th, the experience is smooth, balanced, and stable. Think about it, right? How many times have we seen multiplayer launches collapse or go through difficult times under the weight of too many players that the servers just can't handle that kind of data? Embark doesn't want Arc Raiders to become another one of those cautionary tales. During this beta, players will return to the Damn Battlegrounds map and get a proper taste of what the game has to offer. Progression systems, crafting, quests, all the building blocks of a live service game. And the catch, you may ask? Well, your progress won't carry over to the full release, but as a thank you, what the developers are doing is they're giving the players an opportunity to walk away with a bonus backpack cosmetic item for your character in the game. Executive producer Alexander Grondel explained it clearly. The mission is to make sure that when October the 30th arrives, players are getting the game as intended. Polished, balanced, ready for action. That is the goal. Now, while you're testing the service, Embark has also opened pre-orders. The standard edition of Arc Raiders comes in at around $40 US, while the deluxe edition bumps up the price but throws in a bunch of cosmetics, which include an exclusive emote, a bonus skin, and a chunk of premium currency called Raider tokens. I have to say, when I first saw the previous beta test, I was pretty impressed with what I saw. I'm not a typical fan of live service or extraction kind of games. People who follow the channel know that I'm a single player kind of guy. But this game looked very realistic, very grounded, better than what I was expecting. And at the time of Arc Raiders testing, the only other game that I was really looking at was Marathon and maybe Fair Games. And so by way of comparison, Arc Raiders looked way better. And I've seen a lot of people play the original beta test online and it looked pretty decent. It really did look like my kind of game, albeit a live service game. So although I probably will not go out and buy this game as things stand, I am willing to test out the game during the free stress test and see for myself how this plays out. You never know. I may actually enjoy it and it may tempt me to buy the game. So guys, will you be one of the players who helps stress test those servers, or are you going to wait for the polished version of the game? Alright guys, let me know your thoughts on the articles discussed in the video today. Thank you for watching and I'll catch you on the next video.